Paul?
Yes, go ahead.
Are you able to, I'm sorry to ask this of you, are you able to leave the meeting and rejoin? I can't find you under my interpreter as a panelist.
Oh,
I'm so sorry. I can see Vanessa, but I can't see you and my screen.
okay. Let me just look.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Can you see me now, Erika?
Hi, Jill. Good to see you. Erica, it appears that some of our board members have gone in as attendees instead of participants. Oh, I'm sorry, they're not in panelists, they're in attendees.
Hello. For those of you who have just joined us after closed session, I'm Maria Haug, Board President. I would like to introduce my fellow trustees, Lisa Pelosi, Julio Olguin, Jeannie Kerr, and Jeff Conwell. Also joining us this evening is our student representative to the board, Mr. Joe Brody. I would like to also introduce our district staff, Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
Good evening.
Our Chief Academic Human Resource Officer, Mr. Christopher Heller.
Good evening.
Our Chief Business Official, Ms. Andy Stubbs.
Evening.
Our Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Governing Board, Ms. Erica Madrigal.
Hello.
And our IT Systems Analyst, Mr. Derek Machado.
Hello.
We are delighted that you're here this evening in person or viewing on television channel 27, our YouTube channel. A copy of this board meeting video will also be available on our website at www.santolinaunified.org. In connection with items A and B, the board received information and provided the staff direction on our closed session items.
President Haug, could we at this time have our translators introduce themselves and give instructions on how to receive Spanish translation during the meeting?
Thank you. Yes, please, our Spanish translators, we thank you for your service this evening. Please introduce yourselves and explain in Spanish how to access the meeting in Spanish.
President Haug, they are already in a translation mode right now. So if we have any viewers that are watching, they would need to click on the interpretation globe at the bottom of the screen, and that will then translate the voices to Spanish.
Okay, I'm just going to give a minute for our Spanish-speaking viewers to be able to navigate that situation. In the meantime, I would like to make a quick statement. I would like to take this time to express our sympathy as a district to the 8 school families who lost their homes in the recent fires. I want to commend the students and their parents who found ways for their children to still virtually attend school in such a horrific situation. We want to express our gratitude to all our staff, students, and parents who have made the extra effort to attend school despite over 80 families being evacuated earlier in August, and many more being without power or internet for 3 days this week. It's been a very difficult start to school for all our students, but some have had a more difficult time than others. I would like to ask our community to reach out by phone or email to the PGG of your school to relay a message of support to those families who have lost their homes in August, and let them know how much our community cares for them at this difficult time. I would like to now move to the flag salute. So we would all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now on to public comment on at board meetings. At this time, members of the public are entitled to speak on matters not on the agenda. You're requested to state your name and address and keep your comments concise, brief, and limited to 3 minutes. Members of the public are entitled to speak on any item on the agenda either immediately after the item is called or during public hearing on the subject matter opened by the board president. Ms. Madrigal, did members of the public submit comments on items not on the agenda?
We did not have any written submissions.
Are there any members of the public currently viewing who wish to make a comment on items not on the agenda? Please raise your hand.
There are no members of the public who wish to publicly comment.
Okay, so we'll be moving on to item 7A. That will be a presentation by our student representative to the board. I'd like to call on Mr. Joe Brody.
Good evening, board members, district staff, and community. I would like to reiterate President Haug's message and say that this is a strong community, and I'm proud to be a member of this community. And to all of those affected by these horrific wildfires, know that you are in our thoughts and we carry you with you. We carry you with us. And I encourage you, if anyone in the district needs any support, please reach out. We are here to help you. We are here to serve you. Now, getting into my report, this is definitely one of the most interesting first months of school that I can remember, going back all the way to kindergarten in the district. My report tonight will be brief and focus mainly on the high school as I work with the district and site staff to fill the duties of my role in a virtual setting. We, of course, don't want to take away or make anything more complicated for our site staff and the students because we know that everyone has enough on their plate already. But I just wanted to say that students are really rising to the challenge. They're logging on every morning in their classes, maybe ready to learn, but by the time that class gets going, students are engaged and they're active. Teachers at the high school, I know, are utilizing different online programs to try to stimulate that kind of connection that we would normally have in an in-person class. But it can be challenging, but we're making it work. And I think that that is such a strong start, and we have such a strong foundation that whatever we encounter in these next few months, I think that we're prepared. Teachers are using Nearpod and Flipgrid, allowing students to really connect with each other, even as we all sit at our homes. And it's been difficult. It's been challenging. Sometimes I wake up and my computer just doesn't want to work. But students are working through that, and there are definite support systems at each of the schools for students to interact with every day. It's, how are you? How are you feeling? And it's important that that's coming first right now, that student health, student well-being is really put on the forefront of all of this. Let's see. I want to thank all of the teachers for working student well-being into their schedules. One thing that's been really positive, especially at the high school, is during this open lunchtime, teachers are opening up their classrooms for students to come in, to talk with their friends, and really just to hang out. It's been quite a while since any of the students have seen each other, and it's important that they are able to keep these connections. So I want to thank the teachers who are really going above and beyond. We really do appreciate it. And to kind of wrap up my report, I think the students are ready for anything. I think everyone would like to go back, but there's definitely a sense of understanding that this is a community effort.
Todos estamos entendiendo que todo esto tiene que ver con la comunidad, para apoyarnos como comunidad.
So on that note, I think that we really have a unique opportunity to, again, show our strength as a community. And I think the students of the district are really ready to show up and show out. So thank you. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free.
Trustees, are there any questions, comments? Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much.
Joe. Thank you.
And thank you for representing our students. It's really good to hear the voices of students and what they're going through. It's important for us as a board and for the community to hear someone who's actually experiencing the difficulties and the challenges of this current time, and realizing that they can meet those challenges.
Maria, you're muted. President Haug, you're muted.
I am sorry about that. I'm trying to navigate my screen. We're on to item 8, I believe. Let me just... So that would be board member reports, and I'm going to be calling on Lisa, who will be reporting on the Santolina Primary School.
Thank you very much. I had the pleasure of attending 2 Zoom events at the primary school. The first one I attended was the kindergarten team staff presented an overview of kindergarten and the use of technology. And I got to tell you, it is an interesting time, and it's very eye-opening. But they did a great job of providing bilingual translation as well to all the attendees. And they utilized flashcards, because we're talking about, teaching them how to look at the camera, where's the leave button, how to raise your hand virtually, all those kinds of things. And the teachers went over what they intend to tackle in the course of their class meetings and their small breakouts. It's pretty amazing. And I want to give credit to that team and to Principal Sanguinetti, because they are organized. The information is there for our families. And this is, without a doubt, particularly for our younger students, this is the whole child approach, because we've got families, we've got staff, everybody's involved, siblings, whatnot. So there will be some weekly updates that will go out to the parents. They're going to be doing virtual classrooms, virtual presentations that will be always sent out. They're recorded. They're going to be sent to their families as well. So that's great. And there was also a lot of gratitude going on from parents that kindergarten was working online. So that is kudos to our staff. I then attended Maestra Guerrero's TK class. And if that doesn't make you smile, then I don't really know what will. But again, cute little faces, some right up like this, some halfway, all learning their way around Zoom. And as Joe Brody just mentioned, that those students were rising to the challenge as well. They were so excited to be with their teacher. They could, learning to talk one at a time, asking questions, wanting to know what was going on. And Maestra Guerrero did a great job of making sure, how was everybody feeling? And it was really an eye-opening to see what everybody's going on and how their homes are being turned into classrooms. It's unlike any other thing. And kudos to the teachers and to Maestra Guerra and to Principal Sanguinetti again, it was just, she basically had 2 cameras going. She had all her classroom tools behind her. They talked about the calendar. They sang songs. They did body movement. All of that happened in 40 minutes, 50 minutes. And the kids didn't want it to end. And so congratulations to everybody. The challenges are there, but they are being met. So thank you to everybody.
So thank you, Lisa. Now we're on to Superintendent Subcommittee reports. I believe, Jeannie, are you ready to report for the Business Operations Subcommittee?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
So the meeting was last evening at 4 o'clock, 4 to 5 o'clock. I haven't been on that committee for a couple years. And I was so pleased to see so many people in attendance. It was certainly our employees, there was parents, there was the PTG reps, there was community members that were part of it as well. And so it was just wonderful to see everyone. There's a lot of interest right now as far as our district, which is, I think, is phenomenal. Andy went over the financial updates, kind of where we're at right now. She spent quite a bit of time on our COVID expenses and outlined where the revenue came in with those expense, for those expenses, what has been paid, what we've paid for. We went through the current budget assumptions, so that was for this year. She explained the process of what the board does, what the district does, and how it comes to the board, how it goes to the county office, to the state, all of it. So it's thank you, Andy, for such an informative meeting. It was fabulous. I think that the parents really enjoyed learning everything that you were presenting. There was great questions. She explained that we have in the past it was a quarterly meeting. She has added on a couple of extra meetings on that, and in order to be able to prepare it in case we have to do like some kind of ad hoc type of work. So as of right now, our next meeting will be in November. Once we kind of have an idea of what our property, where our property taxes are going to be coming in as. So it was great, and I just want to thank everyone who is taking the time to learn about our district right now. It's absolutely the best time to learn about our district. So when we get through all of this, we are in a better situation, and our families and employees know exactly where we're at as far as our financial condition. So thanks again to everyone. Thank you, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. And now we're on to, there were two other subcommittee groups that met, the calendar committee, have you decided which of you was going to report out on that for the calendar committee?
Yeah, I can do it. I don't think Jeff was there. I almost actually missed it myself, but got on at the 10 minutes late. But yeah, so I can report on that. So we met last week, September 3rd, and really with the now obviously with a lot of the school closures and the fire and the power shutoffs. There's obviously days that that this committee has taken on a bigger role, I think, right now at this moment. So they're really looking at the 3-year calendar. Our committee reviewed just some of the considerations that they're looking at for the next 3-year cycle. So there was some discussion just in terms of things like the winter break and how long that would be, whether it was 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks. Looking at spring break as well. We had moved that this last year to the start of April and kind of looking how that would look if it was consistently at the first week of April. Looking at the start and end dates, the number of school days for teachers and really just a holiday consideration. So some of those changes were made last year in response to all the additional days with the power outages and the fires and everything. So it was just an overall good discussion. It's a lot of the teachers are on this committee. Students were also given their feedback as well as some of the days and how the last year kind of went, and then the principal as well, or Principal Cinto was on there. So really, it's kind of looking at the next 3-year cycle. That's kind of what a lot of the discussion was, and then some of the feedback and discussions that were included for the next 3-year plan is mentions about trying to align our school calendar with the NAPA calendar. So there was talks about that had been attempted in the past, but for some reason they didn't coordinate well. So now I think NAPA, or Chris had mentioned that NAPA was interested in aligning that. So we might look at that. We also were discussed students that have been leaving early for winter break. So we wanted to kind of see if that has increased or decreased over the past 2 years with the shortening of the winter break. And so looking at that. And then overall, the committee was in agreement just of having the additional cushion days that we have put in place. And that's just really for the school closures, for the smoke, fire, power outages. And so those days are really put in the spring strategically so that we can let families notify them and let them know that those may convert into school days. So we're in agreement that is something that needs to continue. I think that was pretty much it for my end of the calendar.
Thank you, Julio. So we need a break from the translator. We're just going to wait just a minute. Un momento, por favor. I don't know if I said that correctly or not, but I'm hoping I did. Okay. Again, for anyone who's just joining us, we're just waiting on interpretation for a minute.
Both interpreters have joined.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So now I would like to move on to the Superintendent Subcommittee of the Monrovia Group. Were both board members in attendance for the Monrovia Group?
Unfortunately, I was not.
I was there. I can report on this one.
Okay.
This one won't be as long and as I won't talk as much just because the interpreters are translating. With this one, we met August 17th. This meeting took place around the time of the fire, so we didn't have a ton of attendance from the normal community organizations that are there, but we did have the mayor in the city of Salinas, and they were just filling us in with regarding the fire and the evacuations in Angwin and Pope Valley. We did have a report from the Salinas Chamber of Commerce as well, and for me, just overall, this meeting just becomes more and more important with everything that's happening. It's just a great opportunity for these community organizations. A lot of them interact and work together already, but just really to be able to connect and exchange ideas and information in that one meeting is important. So I think it's just a great meeting to attend for our community and obviously for the district to be involved in that. So thank you.
And thank you for attending on behalf of the district. It's really important that we're there. And I know, Mary Lou, you also attend those meetings often. And I think that it's very important that we're a presence. So thank everyone. Now we're on to item 8. Oh. 8C, and I'd like to call on our SHTA President, Mr. Brandon Farrell.
Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight, and I'd like to start out by just reiterating and thanking both Joe Brody and Mrs. Pelosi for the kind words about how some of the year has started both at the high school and the primary. And I know it has really started quite well at the RLS in the elementary school as well. And it's a real team effort. And there's been a lot of behind the scenes work that has gone into putting together the product that it was really, really unknown to us once again. And, when we started this in March and now to what we're doing now, it's quite a difference. And I need to tip my hat to my membership and my group, my leadership, and also tip my cap to a lot of the behind the scenes organization with Andy Stubbs, Chris Heller, for putting some of this stuff together with the principals. It's been quite a task, as everybody has mentioned. There have been some interesting things. I mean, I have a full load of 6 classes, so I get to see firsthand how some of this works, and my heart goes out to the kids that haven't been able to be on because of power or fires or smoke or whatever the case may be. And I certainly have those challenges in my classes. We had some of our members were teaching from the school site. Some of our teachers were teaching from home because of different aspects of their own family. And, we're all teaching at home one day, and then we're all being able to go back to school. And on top of that, we're we're really trying to learn how to be first-year teachers again. And that's the truth. I mean, all the way up to Mrs. Ray and Mr. Hoppy. We are all, no matter what our experience is, are truly learning to be first-year teachers again and putting things together. And we're collaborating like we never have before. So it's been so interesting. I get to see also as a parent 3 different school sites in my house, and I can say that every one of my kids' teachers have been spot on with what they're trying to present to the kids, their management style of the Zoom meetings, and just the demands and the rigor of the kids' work is being met, and it's been a real positive, at least in my house, and I'm hoping it is in many houses or homes as well. So, there are challenges. We are still, working, it seems, from behind. We are always trying to catch up. That's the biggest thing that I hear from my members. It's a constant catch-up game. It's a constant, what can we do the next day to better improve our teaching? And then, quite honestly, all the good thoughts that go into those days, it can be squandered by just simple clicks of the button that don't necessarily go as fast as what you want to, or people, new attendance policies, or things like that Greg at the high school has been really helping us with, just the management of who's there, what constitutes as being engaged versus not engaged. And it's been a real help and a real pleasure to work with all of our principals who have been helping us through this whole experience. I'm really doing this off the cuff because this is really our life. I mean, our life is waking up and making sure we're on and attentive and helping the students with the hopes of someday being back in school. And that's everybody's goal. I know that. And, we're hoping to be in school at some point in time, as long as it's safe and we can do it. But we're anxiously looking forward to that opportunity to be around the students and just to engage with them in ways that we are still not able to engage with the kids. I mean, there is engagement, there's no doubt about it, but there is still a realization that remote learning really doesn't replace full in-person instruction. It's really a program that is designed to try to be as good at it as in full in-person instruction, but it just doesn't meet the mark. So as I'm hoping that we can, find a safe way to progress whenever that may be. But I know my membership will certainly be up to the task as we transition. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Brandon. And thank you to all the teachers and the extra efforts they have made in what really has been a very difficult start when we consider not only starting in remote learning mode, but the power outages, the fires, the families who've lost homes, and teachers having to improvise from day to day as to where they were able to teach from. I want to commend all the teachers for their efforts and their willingness to really go the extra mile. I would like to point out that item 8D is a written report from CSEA, and I would like to express the same sentiments to our classified staff, really thanking them for persevering when a lot of challenges have been in our way to the start of this school year. I didn't even mention the fact that I believe there was a day when Google Meet wasn't working as well. That was out of our control. So on to the item 8E, the superintendent's report. Dr. Mary Lou Wilson, please.
Yes, thank you, President Haug. I do have a few items to update the board and the community on tonight. I wanted to start with the District of Choice process. You'll all remember that District of Choice is the process we use where members of the community who do not live in our attendance area can submit an application and go through a lottery process to be admitted into our school district. So the application process is open. It opened starting September 1st, and it will be open through November 30th. The application is an electronic form this year and can be found on the website. If anyone has any questions about DOC, District of Choice, they need only to contact my executive assistant, Erica Madrigal, here at the district office, and also start with that website because all of the information is there for you. I have started classroom visits, much like Trustee Pelosi, and I know some other administrators have. And I really do also want to commend our teachers for the work that they're doing and for the students. The engagement strategies are amazing and delightful, and it is so heartwarming to see our children and our teachers together. And you're right, Trustee Pelosi, the students are glued to the screen as their teachers are talking and working with them. Also wanted to let everyone know that although we are in a remote environment, we do have back to school nights scheduled. Some of them had to be rescheduled due to the power outages this last week. They will be starting as early as next week. All of the back to school nights, which are broken down based on grade levels at the primary, elementary, and then produced in video format at the middle school and the high school so that parents can meet each teacher. All of the information about each back to school night is posted on the specific site, website, and then also on the district calendar. So there's lots of dates, and so I'm not going to go through all of those right now. All of you have talked about the fires and the smoke and the evacuations and the power outages. And I'd just like to bring up a silver lining that has occurred as a result of the work that our teachers and our students have learned with regards to remote learning. We have had days where there were evacuations and there was smoke and there were fires and some power outages depending on the area. And we were able to continue with instruction. I know that the educational program of our school district is a backbone of consistency for our students and the ability for us to connect with students daily. Joe Browdy talked about checking in and asking how they're doing, and Mr. Farrell talked about the same thing. The consistency that we're providing our students is truly indescribable, and that silver lining of learning to be remote and learning to work from home or wherever, we have to find opportunities in crisis, and that certainly is an opportunity in crisis. We all feel badly for our families and our employees who are suffering from loss, and we do want for them to connect with us so that we can support them. And then I wanted to also bring up a topic that we discussed in June with regards to equity. We as a district did receive a petition in late June following that board meeting where numbers of our former students, potentially some current students, were calling for ensuring that we are doing everything possible to bring equity to all students and supply or ensure that success for all is occurring for everyone. From the standpoint of curriculum, from the standpoint of human resources, our personnel, from all aspects of what we do in our schools. It was directed more specifically at the high school level than our other schools. And please understand that there is work occurring already in the area of ethnic studies. It's not a requirement yet. We just recently learned that it will be a number of years from now. And even so, we have staff members that have been working on professional development on their own to gain information around working with all students. Over the summer, Trustee Olguin and Joe Browdy and Maria Haug worked with me on a statement that was posted to the website for the summer months which is seen on the screen right now. And then in addition to that, we also have a matrix that our principals and our local control accountability steering committee have been working on for the last actually more than a year. That is a matrix that gives you an idea, a notion of what are the kinds of things that are happening at each of our schools with the lens of equity. Not because we think we're done, because we know we're not done. We wanted to make sure and capitalize on what we are already doing and look for those places of what we can improve upon and continue to move forward in. So that the steering committee will continue to look at this matrix and guide all of our schools with regards to this movement. And then more specifically at the high school, I've asked Mr. Cinto to join me in my report tonight for a few minutes. He has some very specific ideas around how he can move forward as the site leader to move the conversation around equity, Black Lives Matter, with regards to not only his students, his teachers, and his community as well. So, Mr. Cinto, would you like to share a few words with the board and the community?
Certainly. Good evening, Board of Trustees. We have a real opportunity in front of us, and I was able to meet with Dr. Wilson and Mr. Heller. Actually, I forget when. I've lost track of time over the last few weeks. To kind of talk about an action plan. So I think one of the first things that came to mind to me was some initial pre-work with the teachers to kind of outline the scope of the work, because as you know, we have many other obligations as a school, some that we get to choose and some that we don't. But basically, working with departments to inventory current practices and curriculum that evidence attention to social justice, systemic racism, underserved populations, and then look for opportunities in space curriculum instruction to make changes for greater attention to those areas. And then really ferreting out what is the substance of those opportunities. And then lastly, what support is needed to make those changes? So that's the initial kind of pre-work in terms of defining the scope. And then, you know, obviously a bulk of what we do is in the classroom, but there's also the whole student experience. So in looking at some outside recommendations to do this kind of work, identifying a third party to facilitate panels representative panels that consist of former students, current students, to kind of share their story. I think that's something that came out in, you know, the peaceful student protest downtown was, you know, students sharing their story, and that kind of replicates inventorying what practices are already in place with teachers. We would also have students and former students identify opportunities within and outside of classes where changes could be made for greater attention to, again, social justice, underserved populations. And then prioritizing those opportunities for greatest impact, recognizing that, you know, schools have many tasks and things that they need to do. So what would be most important? And then lastly, working with action committees to one, evidence the progress of our work. So, you know, in working with teachers and departments, what does that look like? What is our evidence? And then another action committee consisting of administration, teachers, counselors, students, to kind of digest those prioritize opportunities from the student experience panels to determine what falls within the scope of our work, develop implementation plans for said opportunities, and consider evaluation mechanism post-implementation to make sure that, you know, our objectives and what we set out to do is working. And then lastly, of course, we'll be reporting out on progress and outcomes. I actually have my first former student on the panel that I achieved while getting my haircut the other night. So I'm out there hitting the pavement a little when the opportunity arises, but I look forward to working on this task and making changes to our program. It's a great opportunity. It's something we've been doing for years, is refining our work. And I see this as just another step for us to be responsive to our students and our community. So that's the plan as of right now.
Thank you, Ben. And for an area of feedback and recommendations, the Equity, Culture, and Climate Committee will be the committee that Mr. Cinto will report to and ask questions of and seek additional guidance. So members of that committee will have some work to do as well as he moves forward. President Haug, that ends my report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson and Mr. Cinto. One question, Dr. Wilson, there are still slots available on that Equity, Climate, and Culture Committee subcommittee?
Yes, actually, all of the superintendent subcommittees are open to members of the community. You can go onto the district website and look for the subcommittee Sign Up Genius, and you can register right there by simply giving your email address. If you aren't able to access the website, then contacting the superintendent's office 967-2708 will get you to us, and we can manually add you to those committees. Any one of them, actually. Thank you.
So sorry, I was on mute. I apologize to everyone. On to item 9, the consent agenda. Ms. Madrigal, was there any public comment on the consent agenda?
There were no comments submitted.
Is there anyone present that wishes to comment on the public that wishes to comment on the consent agenda? Trustees, do I have any comments or questions on the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, item 9?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Ms. Madrigal, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Browdy?
Aye.
Trustee Conwell?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye. Motion carried. On to item 10, student learning and achievement. I would like to call on Mr. Christopher Heller.
I actually believe that we're going to start with the reopening updates, President Haug, and I will start on that one with your approval.
Sorry, I didn't have that open and I switched my screen too quickly.
That's all right. So as Andy Stubbs, Chris Heller, and myself have been providing you with COVID-19 updates over the course of the last number of months, unfortunately, we wanted to provide you with an update again tonight and really focus on the whole notion of the reopening of schools. So from that perspective of the bigger view, what you see in front of you right now is the most current metrics that the state of California is now using to identify counties within the state. That started on August 28th. It was announced on August 28th, and on August 31st, Napa County was one of the very few states placed in the substantial range, which is this red range here. What that means actually is that schools could reopen as quickly as September 14th. With regards to the public health updates, you can see we're receiving guidance from a number of organizations, through California Department of Education and Public Health, and then also Napa County. And I know I have shared with you before, and just as a reminder, I do participate in a collaborative approach with all of the superintendents in the county. We meet regularly with Dr. Karen Reluccio, our public health officer, and also with the Office of Emergency Services to have as much of the critical updates as we possibly can. And from that information and that guidance, our transition team, which you've become familiar with, that is made up of many of our employees, parent representation from each of our schools, principals, the tech team, maintenance and operations, that team has been working nonstop to dig into the portions of the guidance that are within their area of expertise and really gain understanding so that they are able to bring to the table our next steps and what needs to happen. Opening the schools in any fashion, starting the school year, even in the remote fashion, was a very complex task that our staff has tackled really well. And I believe that our employees who are working right now in the buildings have everything they need to feel supported and in a safe environment. The guidance is very helpful and it is very complex. A couple of updates for you, and then I have a few more things to share with you. As a matter of that complexity and the logistics around being able to open to in-person instruction, which because we are in the red, we are able to do that. We are looking at staying in the distance learning model through the month of September. And that was actually decided even before the public power safety shutdowns. With all of the chaos all of us are dealing with right now, the consistency of that distance learning, I think, will serve us well. When we are able to move to in-person, we will begin with the hybrid model, and we'll do that so that our students and our staff can adjust to the logistics, the safety protocols, the way that they move through the school, because it will be prescribed, the way that they move from one class to another if they are at the middle school and the high school, all of that. 1 to 3 weeks, we want to do it as few of weeks as possible, and we want to make sure that our students and our staff are able to practice that. It's a reality, and we've seen this on the news nationwide. Once we do begin in-person instruction, we may need to close a classroom, a school site, or the entire district based on confirmed COVID-19 cases in either students or staff. And if we do that, we would move right back into our distance learning model, the schedules that were so delicately balanced by our team to move in and out of in-person and remote distance learning. So we would move right into distance learning until we are able to move back into the classrooms. And depending on the public health and what they share with us, that would likely be for a minimum of 14 days for that stay-at-home quarantine. When we move into in-person instruction, we will be able to continue in-person instruction regardless of whether or not the county moves into the purple range. What's interesting about that piece is they want us to continue in-person instruction while moving in and out of distance learning and in-person instruction based on any cases or needs with regards to confirmed cases. There also is a caveat within the guidance that if the public health department or our public health department and or the state makes a determination outside of the ranges, we could potentially be directed to close and move to remote learning. Once we move into that modified in-person, full day in-person schedule, we'll go ahead and remain in that schedule through the 2021 school year, even if we move to orange or yellow. What you'll notice on that chart that I shared previous slide is that there isn't a green stage. And there really is a green, they're not showing it because green means that there's a vaccine, that it's widely used, and that public health has determined that the COVID-19 pandemic is more under control. A couple of other items before I move to Mr. Heller and Ms. Stubbs. There are a couple of other pieces of this puzzle that we are working on. I want you to know, as a board and the community, you've heard this before, we do have access to COVID-19 CARES Act dollars. Andy talked about them last night in the business operations meeting. So there are some funds that have been allocated for specific use around safety instruction and serving our student population. We do have at least 3 months supply of all of our personal protective devices, so masks and whatnot. We have at least 3, actually more than 3 months supply of those items, and at least 3 months of supply of cleaning supplies. That's a really important piece, because I wouldn't want to have to close our system down to remote because we don't have the supplies we need to continue. We also are aware in the Napa County Public Health Guidance that there is a requirement around testing of all employees once every 2 months. So what that means for us is about 25 of our employees need to be tested for COVID-19 every week. We're looking for additional guidance from the county and support from the county public health to support this requirement. And we will, to the extent possible, maximize public health in their testing centers. We know that this is a challenge and a lift. And so as a county, all of the superintendents are working with Dr. Reluccio to resolve that task prior to opening to in-person. I mentioned that the hybrid for a week to 3 weeks, and just some of the logistics that I just wanted to reinforce that we need to accomplish before we go to that 5 full day. It's entering the school, exiting the school, moving from one place to another. It's changing classes. It's transportation and food services. And it's breaks. And that's just a few of them that all of us need to focus on and ensure that not only our staff is comfortable with those processes, that our students are as well. And those are the kinds of challenges that the transition team has just been lifting heavily day to day to do the work for our district. We will continue to provide updates to all of our community members. And again, as a final statement before I move to Chris, I am working with all of the superintendents in the county. We have another meeting as quickly as tomorrow. And our intention is to work collaboratively, because we know that there's so much overlap between our school districts with regards to students and employees and calendars. And our goal is to identify an in-person timeline and notify our communities as quickly as late next week. So, Mr. Heller, would you like to give some updates on instruction?
Sure. From the instruction side of the house, everybody knows that we've opened in distance learning, and our teachers prepared in August with training related to Google Classroom, Google Meet, and Zoom for their instruction. They also worked very collaboratively in grade levels and departments to provide that consistency in their content delivery. So I want to thank them for the work that they did in preparation for this school year, because they really did a lot. I also want to acknowledge the offering that the district provided in the full year distance learning program for students called Fuel Ed. This national program serves as a third-party learning classroom for a small segment of our student population who would be uncomfortable in returning in person at any point during the school year or until there's a vaccination. Students started their program in the coursework this week. And really, the logistic challenges of having an August 4th deadline for enrollment, and then confirming the enrollment of students the following week, and then beginning the coordination with the company made it really a slower than anticipated process for all of us. And I know parents have been frustrated and concerned in the community, but in working with Director of Curriculum Instruction, Mary Allen, we expect our students to continue to make progress with their peers, so there shouldn't be any lapse in continuity with the students that are receiving distance instruction. Moving on to the support that we want to provide, we've provided a couple staff members to support Google Classroom and Zoom And the feedback that I've received has just been nothing but short of incredible of the work that they've done in providing instructional techniques, tips, and content delivery for our teachers in using Google Classroom and Zoom. Also, I want to point out that each site has a re-engagement coordinator. This person will provide outreach to students and families to make sure that they're connected. If there's issues with devices, if there's issues with attendance, we have a person at each site that is reaching out to these families. But we also know that, this is the time that we need to support our most vulnerable students. And we've built in intervention times into the schedules, so teachers, paraeducators, counselors, behaviorists can all reach out at a certain time and have access to their students to do their individual work. And we also recognize that our special education students will continue to need one-on-one services to support their IEP goals. And our IEP teams and our special education staff has done an incredible job of connecting with the families and providing that one-on-one education already for their students. So that concludes my slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heller. Ms. Stubbs?
Thank you. And all of our non-instructional departments and staff have been working really hard to support students and teachers during this time. And so in the area of technology, for example, we've released approximately 150 hotspots to provide internet access. Those include models that provide a wide range of coverage. We've been really happy with those. In addition, our IT staff has been looking at ways to improve the functionality of our Chromebooks, because we know that some students have had challenges with data streaming and participation on Zoom meetings with those. So we're working on that. With regard to food services, I'm really pleased to let everybody know that we did apply for and receive our universal breakfast for all. Additionally, they have extended the waiver for a free lunch all the way through December 31st. So our students are provided meals during this time through our curbside meal pickup. And then parents can submit a new free and reduced lunch application this year so that they can have free lunch if they qualify after that December 31st deadline for the waiver. In the area of facilities, our Director of Facilities and Aquatics, Joe Perez, and I have met with the principals, and we have reviewed their reopening plans and assisted them with ensuring that they're ready for the return of students. With regard to transportation, we have our bus drivers from Michael's Transportation coming out next week to drive our routes, which have been modified to align with the instructional day. And then finally, as we mentioned a little bit earlier this evening, we will be receiving some learning loss mitigation and other one-time COVID-19 funds, and you'll hear more about those later this evening when I provide the unaudited actuals report. And so with that, I'd like to turn it back to Dr. Wilson.
Thank you, Andy and Chris, and members of the board and the community. This was a brief report. We have lots more we have been telling you over the course of the months, and that we will be sharing with the community as we move forward and prepare for in-person instruction. At this time, we are open for any comments or questions that you may have.
So at this time, I would like to ask if there was any public comment, Ms. Madrigal, on this agenda item.
There were no public comments submitted.
Are there any attendees present that would like to make a public comment on this agenda item? Board members, are there any comments or questions on this agenda item?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Thank you very much for this report as well. I very much appreciate it. One of the things that we keep hearing about, and it doesn't sound like it ended up in a very good situation. This is on a legislative arena, is the liability as far as, where there's, so basically it's like how are we going to how is it going to work as far as our risk management, as far as the liability of COVID, and if somebody is so I'm just going to leave it to you. You know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry.
You don't need to be sorry. I appreciate the question, Trustee Kerr. This has truly been an area that Dr. Nemko, our county superintendent, and the county superintendents across the state have been working on for all of us. What you're talking about is some kind of a potential indemnification clause that would provide some protection for the school district in the event that somebody felt that they had contracted COVID-19 as a result of being on one of our campuses and wanted to file a lawsuit. So at this time, the legislators have not moved forward with that item. It was proposed and did not go forward. So it is currently a liability for all school districts. What we have asked Dr. Nemko to research is school districts in other parts of the state that are already open and in person. What are they doing and how are they operating and functioning in this area? So we've asked her to gain more information for us and to share it at our next meeting. And then in addition to that, Andy Stubbs has been working with our North Bay School Insurance to determine if there's any coverage in that way. What we're finding is that there is not. I think Mr. Heller attended a workshop where he was told there are no insurance policies that cover any virus. And so what we're working on right now is that's another one of those barriers that we're working on to gain as much information as we can to make that informed decision when we move forward.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Kerr. Any other comments or questions? Ms. Pelosi?
Thank you. Dr. Wilson, do you know within the guidelines, if that scenario were to happen where we're back in person and there is a confirmed case, a student and or staff member, and then, if we have to shut down for the 2-week period, is there going to be like mandatory testing for everybody who potentially was exposed? And does that come at the district's expense or individual expense?
Really good question, Trustee Pelosi. Currently, the guidance that is provided for us with regards to the testing that I mentioned during the report, that is for employees only. And the guidance is not completely clear on who provides that testing. And that's part of the work that we're conducting with the County Public Health Department.
Okay, thank you.
There's a little bit, I have a little bit more. So I'm sorry. In the event that, so the testing protocol that's in the guidance is, once every 2 months for every employee. In the event that there is a confirmed case, for example, I'll just use Vintage Hall. If there was a confirmed case here at Vintage Hall, there would be an expectation that as a district, we would have the employees that surround that particular confirmed individual tested more frequently. There is not clarity on at whose expense, whether that's public health or the school district. It's fairly clear to me that it would not be an employee's expense responsibility. And then in the event that, we're at a school site with a classroom and a child and or a teacher is confirmed, then public health is going to get involved. And through the contact tracing, they're going to identify who would need to be tested and work with them to get appointments. I am told right now that the public health testing sites are funded through the end of October right now. There was a thought that they'd stay open through November. So that's going to be an unknown question that we move forward with as far as how and where and the cost. And with that as well, you would have all of those potentially confirm, near the confirmed case, and public health could indicate if it's a particular classroom at a school site that the whole wing of teachers be tested more frequently, or if it's through grounds that public health really does determine the amount of testing that occurs.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's very complex.
That is probably an understatement, but thank you.
Thank you for all the clarification. Ms. Kerr?
Thank you. And just from what you're, the discussion with that one there. So does Dr. Reluccio, does she feel like there's going to be enough testing capacity then for Napa County if we all go into in person with the testing of our staff of the 4 districts that we have?
I do not believe that she is fully convinced that the public health system has the capacity to test all of the employees within the county. If you think about our district, when I say once every 2 months, that's approximately 25 employees every week, with a rotation of an 8-week. If you think about Napa Unified, that's approximately 250 employees every week. And then it's fewer in Calistoga, Howell Mountain, and Pope Valley. And then there's also private schools within the county. So in the guidance that's posted on our website and all of the district's websites, what it reads is that public health is one option, and then there's a link for resources of private companies. And we are urged by public health to consider contracting with a private company. That would be at our expense, a district expense, to perform the testing because of capacity. And you can imagine that that's going to be a challenge for all districts, not only here in Napa County, but in all of the counties in the state of California.
Right. Well, we've got it makes the opening up the schools to in person sound easy compared to all of the challenges that we have to deal with, huh?
No, it doesn't make it sound easy to me. It's very challenging, and those are part of the reasons that September 14th, which is next week, that we are not able to be in person, because there are some barriers that we are governed by with regards to these guidances that we need to have answers for, so that we can move forward in a safe and systematic manner to serve our students and support our students and our employees.
Right. Thank you very much. Thanks for the information.
Any other comments or questions, Joe?
Yes, so kind of piggybacking off of this whole conversation, testing, of course, is important, but say there is a hypothetical case at the high school, what is the closing procedure going to look like, A, for that site, but then all of the other sites as well?
You all have really good questions tonight. So again, County Public Health will be very intricately involved in that process. Whether it's us notifying them first or them notifying us because of a confirmed case, it could look like at the high school it's challenging because the students are going to be moving. So the likelihood of a confirmed, Dr. Reluccio, they refer to it as an outbreak, and an outbreak is 3 or more cases. So what I've been hearing this week is if there is an outbreak at the high school, that would likely close the high school for 14 days. The challenge with our school district is that the guidance also indicates that if you are required to close 25% of your schools due to a confirmed case, you need to close the district. So 25% of our schools is one of our schools. And so if we have to close an entire school, then all of our schools will go to remote learning. Now, in the reverse, Joe, if we're at the primary or the elementary school and it's an isolated cohort that we can truly determine has not been in contact with anyone else, we may be able to close a classroom or a grade level or a wing for in-person instruction for those 14 days. So it really depends, and we'll be working with public health to determine the specifics for any particular case, which is truly going to be a case-by-case determination.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? I have a little bit of a different question. How were we able to serve our students that lost their homes with remote learning? Have they been afforded?
You hit your mute button, President Haug.
Sorry. Have they been afforded? I don't know when I hit it. I was talking about our students who lost their homes. Have they been afforded replacement technology devices, and have they been able to connect with their classrooms and teachers?
As a brief overview, I know that some of our students were connecting even as they were evacuated from a variety of locations. Ms. Stubbs, can you talk about any device or materials replacement or hotspots that may have been deployed as a result?
We have a shared Google document that is updated constantly by the principals and the IT staff. And so when there's need for a student, then they put that information in the Google shared doc, and IT responds and gets them what they need. I can check tomorrow and ensure that the needs of those families have been met, and then respond.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments as far as distance learning and the report that was just given by our district administration? So thank you. Thank you for that report and for all the detailed answers that you gave us. It was really helpful, and I hope it was also helpful to our community in understanding what's going on. So we are now on to item 10B, which is the distance learning updates for September 2020. This is, I'd like to call on Mr. Heller.
Let me get my mute. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, I got my mute button. Thank you. In years past, the board will recall that we present an outline of LCAP, local control accountability presentations, to focus on the critical areas of work in our district. And tonight, in alignment with the learning continuity and attendance plan, which will be presented in the next item, we'd like to share the monthly presentations that we will provide in support of that plan. And recalling that this is a one-year plan in preparation in the gap year for COVID-19, that we will have a 3-year cycle for the local control accountability plan that will be developed and presented in the spring of 2021. So as you can see, the different months indicate the updates within that plan and focus areas: special education, English learners, socio-emotional supports, and learning loss data, and then a general update of the plan overall in February, before we kind of start to sunset that in preparation for the local control accountability plan. But tonight in September, each principal has provided a little bit of a report or a couple updates in their reports, and I'd like them just to share one or two of the points in a quick update if they could. So we'll start with Tamara Sanguinetti. Tamara from the primary.
Hold on just a minute. Can you open my thing for me, please? Is that okay? One thing that I would say that that we felt at the primary school was really necessary was to actually meet with our students individually. of course, socially distanced. So all of the teachers have had an opportunity, I mean, kind of over time since the fires and stuff, meet with each student and their family just to kind of make that personal connection and do a little demonstration.
I can't right now. I'm about to make a presentation. Talk to me in a little bit.
Oh, wait. Wait, sorry. Am I on still? Okay. And then second, the other thing I'd like to bring up is that we have really been going in very hard with parent education, as Lisa Pelosi mentioned, because this is really the first time for many of our parents entering in the world of technology and Zoom and all of those things. And it really, with the little kids, really requires a parent to be involved and a parent to know what's going on. So every grade level has had at least 2, some grade levels have had 3 parent education meetings. And I feel like that is really, really been important to keep our students connected, because we really need to connect the parents in order to have our students connected.
Great. Thank you, Tamara. Tanya?
Thank you. Hold on one moment. Okay. Thank you. So we also focused over the summer to prepare for increasing the engagement, which would mean just the ability for students to be interested and speak or engage with the teacher and with the curriculum and each other during the live video sessions. We knew that we would be moving to Zoom, which has been really wonderful. And teachers were able to utilize, say, training to notice how they could have small breakout groups that would allow students to speak more authentically to how it looks in the classroom. Where teachers directing some of the learning, but then we're able to actually have students be more interactive and not just rely on the teacher for their instruction, because we know that learning is social, and students being able to interact with each other is the biggest component that's missing when we're in our distance learning, in many of our opinions. So that's been learned about over the summer, and now we've been able to actually actualize and implement it, which is wonderful to see that engagement has increased and students are more active, and they're therefore able to retain more of the learning that happens during the live sessions. They also have their classrooms organized in such a way that students are able to find daily assignments. They're able to post their assignments and have videos and other things evidence the learning that they're doing while at home, and sharing with peers as well, so that they're learning from each other. One last point I would make is that we are working on a daily basis to monitor and to support emotions that students are having. We're working on units so that the first few weeks or so, we're looking at students really being able to self-assess and to notice their changing emotions, and that it is absolutely right and fine for sometimes to feel high and positive and kind of upbeat, and for other times to have just the reality and the heaviness of this moment hit us, and to know how to understand and embrace that, and then develop tools for what to do when there are difficulties in our emotional selves. First, to focus on themselves, then they'll be working on how they're interacting and developing richer relationships with one another, and then just working on the community as a whole as we continue to move forward in this year. So again, we have started with that and really monitoring our emotional state, which is so important to have as a platform that's positive and that's in place, so that the rest of the academic learning can take hold as well. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Tanya. Corinne?
Yeah, our focus has been on making sure that what teachers are doing to support kids is consistent. We learned during the spring that having each teacher set things up individually, because they did not have time to plan for our closure in the spring, caused some confusion among kids. And so a big goal of ours was to make it as easy for students and families as possible to access the curriculum while we're remote. So Deborah Carnes and Dana Simon spent most of the summer working on how to make Google Classroom consistent and easily user-friendly for kids, how to have it set up so that they could see it on their phones or on a smaller screen. And then that's what they provided professional development on for all of our teachers, which was incredibly helpful. Deborah is our new technology TOSA, and she did an exceptionally great job of creating videos so that each teacher's Google Classroom is set up identically in order to support our students and our families in their attempts to access it. It's been really successful. I've dropped into every teacher's classes multiple times so far, and I've been very impressed with the work that they've put in, the level of engagement of the students, the participation, and the attendance have been really encouraging. I think it's going very well, considering that we have had some technology issues primarily due to Chromebooks, which were really not designed for the amount of processing load that we're putting on these lessons. I also want to mention, to tag on to what Tanya said, that we're concerned about students' social emotional needs at this time as well. And so our 2 PE teachers are doing second step social emotional lessons during PE each Wednesday. And then in addition, we still have the therapist from Up Valley, and Terry O'Leary, our counselor, is reaching out to students on a regular basis to make sure that everyone's getting what they need. So far, I think the year has gone really well. I've been very pleased with how much work teachers have put into it and how seriously students are taking remote learning this time around.
Great, thanks. Benjamin from the high school.
All right, my report is a lot like Corinne's. I mean, the work done by a crew of teachers, you'll see in my first bullet, Paige Rios, Danny Diamond, Madeline Brazil really took the reins in terms of, curating videos and putting together lessons. Our first 2 days at school was every teacher did the same presentation to their students, and that was all put together ahead of time. But each teacher had to facilitate that. So, they really just stepped up to the plate to really support their colleagues and in support of students. The paraprofessionals, last year, one of my LCAP goals was the work we did in room 303 by combining Miss Ray and then Mr. Clutie and then the paraprofessionals and math intervention teachers. And it's unfortunate that when the school year closed, I was tracking GPA data, and we had seen a positive trend. I think 80% of the students had increased their GPA from last year to this year. So wanting to see that work continue, I can't celebrate the paraprofessionals enough. A new one, Alma Robledo, that we hired this summer, just stepped right in, and they're mentoring EL students receiving special education services, and students in independent study. They are being utilized during every single period of the day, during access period, and they're even supporting students during at-home study time. So their work in supporting student achievement is awesome. And again, they helped out with our student distribution work of textbooks and computers. I mean, something that normally took 5 minutes in a faculty meeting took probably 100 hours of work in terms of preparation and boxing up all the materials and checking materials out. They work with Susan Swan in the library, a number of them, to really make that happen.
Thank you. Thank you, principals, for the update on distance learning. And Principal Haug, that concludes this report.
President Haug, you'll need to unmute your microphone.
I am so sorry. I was asking if there was any public comment on this agenda item, or if there is anyone in the audience who wishes to comment publicly on this agenda item.
There were no public comments submitted via our email system. And there does not appear to be any, a member of the public who would like to comment on this item.
And trustees, do we have any comments or questions? Lisa?
I just want to take a moment to thank all the principals for putting together this. This is just a nice, it's just nice a layering of the whole process of what is going on, and I'm very grateful for it personally. So thank you.
I see the rest of the board members nodding their heads as well. I really like having the structure of how the schools will be reporting out for the rest of the year outlined for us. I think that it really is helpful to have that list now and to know what subjects will be covered when throughout the year. And I really appreciate the time and thoughtfulness that has gone into the list. I feel that we're really going to have a well-rounded reporting out from all of our schools this year. So thank you. On to item 10C. This is consideration of approval for the 2020-2021 Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan. I'd like to call on Mr. Christopher Heller again.
Yes, thank you. Well, we've talked about this enough tonight and at our last board meeting. So, you know, we conducted a public hearing last month on the 2021 Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan. We've collected some information, made some modifications and adjustments, and it's here tonight to present for final approval. One more time, it is a one-year plan in the midst of this COVID pandemic to continue to serve students in alignment with the California Department of Education guidelines, and the LCAP will resume its development in the spring of 2021 for a full implementation in the fall of 2021. So I would ask that the governing board approve this document.
Members of the public, do we have any comments or questions on this, comments on this agenda item?
President Haug, there were no questions submitted via email, and it doesn't not appear to be any questions from the public in the audience right now.
Trustees, any comments or questions? Lisa?
In rereading this again, Mr. Heller, I promise you I reread it every single time, all 23 pages. And that was going to be my question. And I think you kind of answered it. There were maybe some slight modifications or tweaks. Nothing seemed to jump out at me that changed from the last reading to this reading. Am I correct in that?
There were a few modifications. Yeah, I could have Mary Allen speak to that piece of that. She did make a few adjustments in one of the sections that added some more content. So Mary, can you talk a little bit about that? Mary.
I just lost. Okay.
There you go. You're here.
There we go. It switched. So Erica, when you switched me over, I lost everybody. Sorry about that for a second. So good evening, everybody. You're correct, Ms. Pelosi. It's just a few changes. Just wanted to include that we had provided a student survey at the end of the school year. So that was in the stakeholder engagement part. And then the main changes that I made were in the unduplicated pupil count to make sure that we had put everything that we had done for our unduplicated pupils, including technology, intervention specialists, re-engagement folks. So it's just adding more of what we were doing that wasn't in there originally.
Thank you, Mrs. Allen. Board members, any other comments or questions? Julio?
Yes, thank you. I just had a question regarding I think it was page 17, the mental health and well-being. I know that there's been a lot of opportunities in our new distance learning for our students to really make those connections with their teachers and their classmates during the distance learning. So I guess my question is more regarding the fuel ed students. I know that they're on a different program, but have there been any opportunities, or will there be any opportunities for those students to make connections with their classmates in some form? I just know that a lot of the families that are doing this, we want to make sure that they're feeling like they're still part of our district. So I'm curious about. I didn't see any mention about the fuel ed students, and I know the mental health aspect is offered to those students, but I was looking at more around the opportunity for connection with their classmates.
Let me jump on there. At this particular moment, Julio, I need to figure out their classes and make sure we get everything up and running. After that point, then we'll be able to maneuver where we could tap them into. We certainly can't put them into any of our classes in reference to the content areas, but they're still allowed to, if we get back to in-person and we have some after-school activities, they're allowed to be in our after-school activities. If we have the capability with their schedules to where we have a homeroom and they can touch base with the homeroom or access, it just depends on once I get all the schedules working, where we have time to maneuver. We just can't maneuver them completely into our schedules.
Yes, I understand that. Thank you for the clarification.
Again, also remember that what we are looking to do is provide stable cohorts at the primary and elementary levels. And we're looking to minimize, additional contact with, we're looking to really work to mitigate any potential spread. And part of the reason that families chose fuel ed was because of their concern about coming onto the campuses. And so it is a challenge that you're bringing up, and one that certainly we will move forward and look to resolve for the 54 students who have selected the fuel education program.
Yes, and I think I was along the lines of in regards to from a distance learning perspective, even if it's something where and I know that they can't be inserted in the classes because they're part of this other program, but definitely if there's opportunity within the Zoom platform where they can at least see other students in some fashion is what I was looking at. Thank you.
Thank you, Julio. Are there any other questions or comments from the board members? Do I have a motion to approve the 2020-2021 Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal, please call the roll.
Trustee Browdy?
Aye.
Trustee Conwell?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye. Motion carried. And I know that this plan will be accessible through board docs. I'm assuming that it will be also available on our website to our school community, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. And then we have item 10D, which is a written report on the 2020 summer school program. I would like to remind the board that this is a written report. Ms. Madrigal, was there or is there public comment on this agenda item?
There is no public comment.
Trustees, do you have any questions or comments on this agenda item? So I don't see any comments. I would like to actually make a comment. I'm really proud of, despite all the difficulties that occurred with distance learning throughout this summer and the challenges that people faced, I am really want to congratulate our students that passed courses that they needed to pass. And I really think that that's a testament to their hard work and determination. And I want to congratulate all of our summer school students that were able to pass courses and get on track toward graduation. And I really want to commend all the work that they did. Thank you, students. And thank you, parents that supported your students. Okay, thank you. Moving on to our next agenda item is the presentation on the California Healthy Kids survey data, and that's item 10E. And I'd like to call on Mrs. Mary Ellen.
Yes, good evening again. Typically at this time of the year, we go through the California Healthy Kids survey results that are administered. The test is or the assessment is administered in October, and it just gets a feel for the school climate and how students are doing in a variety of areas. And we did administer it in October. And then at the end of the year, because of the pandemic and COVID-19, WestEd offered another survey, and that was called Learning from Home. So this is going to focus more on the Learning from Home survey. And then down the road throughout the school year, I will send out the Healthy Kids survey results to the board members, and perhaps we can do a further analysis of the Healthy Kids survey in the future. But right now, we're going to focus on the Learning from Home due to the COVID-19 and the pandemic. So the first part is just focusing on student routines and sleep during May and June when they had taken the survey. And you can kind of see the results here in reference to, what time did you go to bed? What time did you start your schoolwork? This particular category also under the routines and sleep focused on how often were you online during the day, and what time were you online during the day, which all of this material really helped Mr. Heller and myself put together the continuity, how do you say that word? I'm sorry. Local continuity and attendance plan. Sorry about that. So this information was very valuable to us. Next slide. I can't move the slide. Thank you. This has to do with looking at the Healthy Kids survey. This is how they responded before distance learning related to sleeping. And as you can see, most of our 4th and 5th graders go to bed before 10 o'clock, which is good news. And then you can certainly see for our 7th, 8th, and 11th graders, they kind of are spread around in reference to how many hours of sleep they get during the night. This was really interesting to me in reference to their interest in schoolwork. Was I academically motivated to learn? You can see in the lower grades, it started out really high, and then as you got up in the upper grades, it kind of went down. Again, this is during distance learning. And then, was I interested in my schoolwork? Across the board, the students were not engaged. It was crisis teaching for our teachers and crisis learning for the students. It was just such an unusual time, and they were not used to it. So that's where we're seeing a total different mindset this year coming into the school year. But last year, towards the end of the school year, this is May and June, everybody's tired. This was new, exhausting, and you could see they just didn't have any interest in schoolwork.
Mary Ellen, we have a request for a break from our translators.
Oh, got it.
Oh. Okay, now we're ready to go. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Another component of the Learning from Home was healthy connections. And this was really nice to see, stating from the students that I had a caring relationship with an adult on campus. And across the board, you can see that our students were still connected with their teacher or somebody on our campus. And for the most part, it was their teacher. And that's really nice to know that the students were still connected. They didn't care necessarily to be engaged with the schoolwork, but they were connected with the teacher in school. And did I have a caring relationship with peers? And you can see that that was positive as well towards the end of last year. Social emotional health from the Healthy Kids survey in October. Do you feel sad sometime of the year? You can see the results right there. We have it, 4th and 5th grade. And then from the end of the year survey, Learning from Home, do you feel sad some of the time? As you can see, 4th graders went from 50% to 73%. That to me was significant, is that they were missing their friends. They were missing that connection and that camaraderie, and they were definitely having some sad moments there. This has to do with the learning from home at the end of the year. Do you feel sad or down pretty much of the time? And then you can see, do you feel sad or down very much? True. And, you know, ninth graders, you can certainly see that a third of them were feeling sad a lot of the time. And this is May and June at the end of last year. So it's hard for students to be out doing distance learning. And it was just that time where nobody knew what was expected and where we were going. So I would have expected these results, if not a little higher. And then just the end of this particular presentation is, as Mr. Heller was stating, we used a lot of this data because there was a lot of data in the survey to help us create the plan. Student routines are important for students. They need it at home and they need it at school. Routine promotes predictability and safety. And then connections to adults and other students are really important for student success and wellness. And then motivation and engagement, as you can see in our learning plan, there's a lot around motivation and engagement to keep the kids engaged, to increase professional development for our teachers in reference to engagement strategies online, and then really making sure that our grading practices and our attendance practices are very clear. So we have worked on all of these components, and it has to do mainly with what we're getting from the students from last year. That concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Ms. Madrigal, is there any public comment or public questions on this agenda item?
There's no public comment.
Board members, any questions or comments on this agenda item? There's a lot of questions. Okay, so we'll start with Julio.
Yes, I had a quick question, Mary Ellen. How many students, I don't know if you mentioned it, how many participated in that June or the May-June survey?
We actually had pretty good turnout. So I would say at the lower grades, all the way up until 10th grade, we had good turnout. I would say 12th grade, we had probably, I'm going to say 40%, but up until that, we had more than 70% of our students, if not higher.
Okay. And then I'll just make my comment about this since I'm on right now. I just wanted to say thank you to the staff, just because I feel like the data you guys obviously were able to get from the survey played an important role as far as you developing the learning plan. So I appreciate that you guys took a lot of the suggestions and a lot of the concerns or things that maybe didn't work during the spring, and now have applied it, because it does make a huge difference as far as what is how the kids are learning this year and how engaged they are. So I appreciate the work that's been done around this. Thank you.
Jeannie, you had a question as well, and then Lisa.
Actually, I didn't have a question, but my comment was very similar to Trustee Elgeen's. As far as the West End survey was very valuable as far as how our schedules for this year. So thank you very much for facilitating that and participating in that survey and getting that out to our students. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Lisa?
Yes, and of course, right along those same lines, I think the one thing that obviously jumps off from that presentation is the human connection that the students felt. So we know how important that is, whether they're, thriving to their best of their ability academically, that having those people they connect with is crucial. And I just applaud the district for really paying attention to that, because that is going to be such a factor for our students moving forward during this time. So, thank you for heeding that and implementing that as we move forward.
Thank you, Lisa.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you. Thank you for the report. I know that you're doing a lot of other the whole office is wearing a lot of hats right now. So we as a board really appreciate the time that's taken into putting such thorough reports together so that not only the board knows what's going on, but the entire community is able to listen to these reports through the board meetings that are on our website. On to item 11A, Human Resources. This is a consideration of adoption of Resolution 20-5 through 20-8 for teachers on consent to teach for 2020-2021 school year. I'd like to call on Mr. Christopher Heller.
Thank you. Each year we present to the governing board teachers who teach outside of their credential area but have background with coursework in the specific area that would permit them to teach a course with their consent. The four presented tonight for your consideration have met the criteria in the background that I mentioned, and we request final approval from the governing board for them to be authorized to teach these courses this year.
So is there anyone present in the public forum who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item, or was there any public comment submitted, Ms. Madrigal?
There's no public comment.
Trustees, do you have any comments or questions on this agenda item? Is there a motion to approve a motion to adopt resolutions? And I believe it's, I'm sorry, 20-5 through 20-8 for teachers on consent to teach for 2020-2021 school year.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Conwell.
Aye.
Trustee Kerr.
Aye.
Trustee Elgin.
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi.
Aye.
Trustee Haug.
Aye. Motion carried. On to item 11B. This is the oral recommendation regarding salary and fringe benefits and the review of the fifth contract amendment for the superintendent appointment agreement. And I will be reading the following statement. The board took action on August 13th, 2020 to approve a fourth contract amendment for the district superintendent, Dr. Mary Lou Wilson. At the time of the approval of the fourth contract amendment, there was a limited oral recommendation regarding the salary and/or compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits for the superintendent. Therefore, for the purposes of full transparency, I will provide an oral summary of the salary and compensation for the superintendent prior to the board taking action to approve the fifth contract amendment for the superintendent, which corrects a typographical error in the fourth amendment. Effective July 1st, 2019, the district shall pay the superintendent an annual salary of $261,853. Effective July 1st, 2020, the district shall pay the superintendent an annual salary of $272,327. Effective July 1st, 2021, the district shall pay the superintendent an annual salary of $280,497. These increases of 4% effective July 1st, 2019, 4% effective July 1st, 2020, and 3% effective July 1st, 2021 are the same as those received by all other management and non-management employees over the same time period per board approval following negotiations with the district's bargaining units and unrepresented employee groups. There are no changes to fringe benefits. So in connection with the statement that I just read, I will be moving on to item 11C. Was there any public comment on this agenda item?
There was no public comment.
And there's no public comment currently?
There's currently no public comment.
Do trustees have any questions about this agenda item? Is there a motion to approve the fifth contract amendment and superintendent salary schedule as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve a contract amendment number 5 for the district superintendent as presented.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Ms. Madrigal, can you please call the roll?
Trustee Conwell?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Elgin?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. We've gone through this now a second time just for clarity purposes, and I thank you for bringing it to the board's attention that we needed to read the document out orally. We will now be going on to a similar procedure for the approval of the, it's item 11D, approval of the 2020-2021 annual salary schedule for the superintendent. And I'd like to call on Ms. Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. So what we've done here is created, and perhaps if Erica can open it for us, a salary schedule that captures the salary that the board stated in the previous item for current year, and then it also shows the salary from last year as well. And so this just creates a salary schedule much as we have for our other employees.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Just trying to go to my other screen. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item?
There were no comments submitted on this agenda item, and there are no audience members who care to publicly comment on this item.
Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? Is there a motion to approve the 2020-2021 annual salary schedule for the superintendent as it's presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal, please call the roll.
Trustee Conwell?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr? Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Elgin?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you again, Ms. Dr. Wilson. So a lot of these are, again, procedural items that we're doing in the interest of full transparency to our district. And now we will be doing a similar thing for our chief business official. So the board took action on August 13th, 2020 to approve a seventh contract amendment for the chief business official, Ms. Andrea Stubbs. At the time of the approval of the seventh contract amendment, there was limited oral recommendation regarding the salary and/or compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits for the chief business official. Therefore, for the purposes of full transparency, I will provide an oral summary of the salary and compensation for the chief business official prior to the board taking action to ratify the March 12th, 2020 contract amendment. Effective July 1st, 2019, the district shall pay the chief business official an annual salary of $205,585. Effective July 1st, 2020, the district shall pay the chief business official an annual salary of $219,693. $219,693. Effective July 1st, 2021, the district shall pay the chief business official an annual salary of $232,345. The salaries in each year reflect an annual step increases as well as the same salary increases received by all other management and non-management employees over the same time period for board approval following negotiations with the district's bargaining units and unrepresentative employee groups of 4% effective July 1st, 2019, 4% effective July 1st, 2020, and 3% effective July 1st, 2021. And on to item 11F. What I would like to call on Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
I will keep this very brief this evening, and I think it's simple and easy for all of you to agree with me that Dr. Andy Stubbs is an important member of our executive team, and it's with great pleasure I recommend and request that you move forward with ratification of the 7th Amendment for Andy Stubbs.
Was there any public comment on this agenda item, Ms. Madrigal?
There was no public comment. Members of the public, are there any comments on this agenda item? There's no public comment.
I'm sorry. Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? Okay. So, Jeff, would you like to make a motion to ratify the March 12th, 2020 7th contract amendment for the chief business official as presented?
I certainly will. Thank you very much. I'd like to make that motion, President Howard.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Ms. Madrigal, please call the roll.
Trustee Conwell?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you very much, Andy. Now on to another reading. It'll be an oral recommendation regarding salary and or fringe benefits for the Chief Academic Human Resource Officer Employment Agreement. The board took action on August 13th, 2020 to approve a 6th contract amendment for the Chief Academic Human Resource Officer, Christopher James Heller. At the time of the approval of the 6th contract amendment, there was limited oral recommendation regarding the salary and or compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits for the Chief Academic Human Resource Officer. Therefore, for the purposes of full transparency, I will provide an oral summary of the salary and compensation for the Chief Academic Human Resource Officer prior to the board taking action to ratify the March 12th, 2020 contract amendment. Effective July 1st, 2019, the district shall pay the Chief Academic Human Resource Officer an annual salary of $205,585. Effective July 1st, 2020, the district shall pay the Chief Academic Human Resource Officer an annual salary of $219,693. Effective July 1st, 2021, the district shall pay the Chief Academic Human Resource Officer an annual salary of $232,345. The salaries in each year reflect an annual step increase as well as the same salary increases received by all other management and non-management employees over the same time period per board approval following negotiations with the district's bargaining units and unrepresented employee groups of 4% effective July 1st, 2019, 4% effective July 1st, 2020, and 3% effective July 1st, 2021. On to item 11H, ratification of the Sixth Amendment to the Employment Agreement for the Chief Academic Human Resource Officer. Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
Yes, again, Mr. Heller is a critical member of our team and of executive cabinet. I know you find great value in all of his work, and it's with pleasure that I recommend at this time that you ratify the Sixth Amendment for Mr. Heller.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. And Ms. Madrigal, is there or was there public comment on this agenda item?
There was no public comment on this agenda item. Members of the public, are there any members who would like to provide public comment on this item? There's no public comment.
Trustees, do we have any comments or questions about this agenda item? Is there a motion to approve a motion to ratify the March 12th, 2026 contract amendment for the Chief Academic Human Resource Officer as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal, will you call the roll?
Trustee Conwell?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Heller. Thank you. So now we're on to item 12, facilities. And we have a 12A is a facilities update for September 2020. And this is a written report. I'd like to remind everyone that the report is accessible through board docs. And I'd like to call on Miss Andy Stubbs if she would like to answer any questions regarding the report. Was there any public comment on this agenda item?
There was no public comment.
Is there currently any public comment?
No, there is no public comment.
Trustees, do we have any questions or comments for Ms. Stubbs?
No, I
Okay.
don't.
Okay, no one has any questions? So again, thank you. Thank you for the report, Andy. On to item 12B is to approve the approval of the award to a contract. I'm sorry, approval to award a contract for the Santolina High School Athletic Field Scoreboard project. I'd like to call on Miss Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. For this item, the board is asked to approve the award of a contract in the amount of $63,553 to FRC Inc. For the installation of the scoreboard at the high school athletic field. And we solicited bids for this work, and FRC Inc. was the lowest bidder. The increased costs for installation are resulting in an overall project budget overage of about $25,000. However, I've reviewed the project as a whole with Mr. Cinto, the high school principal, and we've determined that we can use high school site discretionary funds to cover that shortfall per the description in the agenda language. And we had hoped that Fair Play, from whom we purchased the equipment, would bid on the installation because we purchased because they quoted us initially a much lower cost. But when they saw the conditions of the field, they decided not to bid the project because they felt that the area was a difficult area to get into. It would require some extra equipment and some handwork. And so fortunately, the FRC Inc. quote did take those factors into consideration when they provided their bid, but that's why their cost is higher. And so with that, I would ask if the board had any questions prior to considering approval of this item.
First of all, I'd like to ask if there's any public comment on this agenda item, or has it been submitted? And is there currently any public comment on this agenda item?
There was no public comment submitted. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this item? There's no public comment.
Board members, questions or comments on this agenda item? So I just, for our viewers at home, I'd just like to remind everyone that this is a agenda item that has been vetted by our business operations subcommittee and has been reviewed by the board in previous meetings. So on to, I would like to ask if there's a motion to approve the contract award for the Santolina High School Athletic Field Scoreboard project as presented.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Browdy?
Aye.
Trustee Conwell?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye. Motion carried. Hopefully we'll be using that scoreboard sooner rather than later. On to item 13A. So 13A is going to be the approval of the revised 2020 board meeting calendar. I would like to call on Dr. Mary Willow Wilson.
Thank you, President Haug. As you can all see on the screen, typically during the month of December, the board determines all of the regularly scheduled board meetings for the following year, which you did last year in December of 2019 for this year. We were notified by legal counsel and California School Board Association that because of the date in which our meeting was scheduled, it is not in alignment with the timeline for new board members to be sworn into office. And so as a result of that, we need to make a change to the December board meeting. Erica, I believe it was currently set for December 10th. And in order to have it within the timeline that is required, we're recommending that we move that board meeting to December 17th. And because these are voted on by you as a board and they are regularly scheduled meetings, we do need to make that change tonight. And so I recommend you approve the change to the December board meeting to December 17th, 2020.
Ms. Madrigal, was there any public comment on this agenda item, or is there currently any public comment on this agenda item?
There was no public comment submitted. Are there any attendees who wish to comment? There's no public comment.
Trustees, do we have any comments or questions? Is there a motion to approve the revised 2020 board meeting calendar as presented?
I'll make the motion to approve the revised 2020 board meeting calendar.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Browdy?
Aye.
Trustee Conwell?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye. Motion carried. On to item 13B, the adoption of Resolution 20-13 against bullying, harassment, discrimination, and violence. I would like to call on our student board representative, Mr. Joe Brody.
Alrighty, I have the privilege of reading resolution number 20-3. So this is, again, resolution 20-3 of the Santolina Unified School District against bullying, harassment, discrimination, and violence. Whereas Santolina Unified School District supports the right of students and staff to attend schools that are safe and free from bullying, harassment, discrimination, and violence. And whereas providing a safe school environment that ensures both the physical and emotional safety of students and staff creates the conditions necessary to foster academic achievement. And whereas bullying, harassment, discrimination, and violence, and even the fear of harm can create barriers to learning and contribute to low self-esteem, depression, anger, and in extreme cases, school violence or suicide. And whereas a safe school is one where teaching and learning are not distracted, disruptions are minimized, drugs, violence, bullying, and fear are not present, students are not discriminated against, expectations for behavior are clearly communicated, and consequences for infractions are consistently and fairly applied. And whereas the most effective approach to creating safe school environments requires a comprehensive, coordinated effort, including school-wide, district-wide, and community-wide strategies where all institutions, organizations, and individuals accept responsibility for their critical roles and collaborate to establish a positive environment for teaching and learning. And whereas the month of October is National Bullying Prevention Month, which is a campaign in response to the need to raise awareness of bullying that provides schools and communities with an opportunity to educate students, parents, and others about their role in bullying prevention. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Santolina Unified School District hereby support the goals of National Bullying Prevention Month and will work with a broad spectrum of local community stakeholders, parents, students, teachers, and staff to develop, implement, and monitor policies and programs that foster and support a positive school climate free from bullying, harassment, discrimination, and violence.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brody. Is there any public comment on this agenda item, or was there any public comment submitted, and is there any current public comment on this agenda item?
There was no public comment submitted, and there are no attendees who are indicating that they wish to publicly comment on this item.
Board members, are there any comments on this agenda item? Thank you, Joe, for reading it. I really think that at every school level, it is a very important resolution to have, and just to remember that the scars of bullying can last a lifetime for some people who are victims, and we really have to be vigilant, because even though we have this resolution, it has to be read by all of our students, all of our staff, and all of our parents to know that it is a very important part of a successful school system and school district. So thank you. I would like to ask the trustees if there's anyone who would like to make a motion to approve this resolution as read by Joe.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And Ms. Madrigal, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Trustee Brody?
Aye.
Trustee Conwell?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, everyone. On to item 14A, review and consider approval of the 2019-2020 unaudited actuals report. I would like to call on Ms. Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. And the entire report and the full presentation is in the agenda item for your review if you want to drill down and take a look at some additional details. For tonight's purposes, I'm just going to focus primarily on an overview of our financial position as we concluded the 2019-20 fiscal year, and then also talking about COVID expenditures and revenue a little bit. And so this slide here shows just a summary of, as I mentioned, how we concluded the 2019-20 year, just in regard to our general fund. And so this combines unrestricted and restricted resources. And the general fund, as you know, is where most of our education expenditures occur. We also have the cafeteria fund and other special reserve funds. We began the year with a beginning balance of about $9 million. We took in about $38 million in revenue and spent about $35 million in expenditures, which resulted in a surplus of over $3 million. However, we also transferred out approximately $2 million to our other funds, for example, to our food services fund and to our special reserve, and then also a couple of our facilities funds. And the detail on those transfers would be in the full presentation and also in the SACS reports. And so that resulted in, oh, I'm sorry, Erica, if I could just finish up that first slide. And so that resulted in an unrestricted increase to the general fund of, as you can see in the pink there, a little bit over $1 million, for a total ending fund balance at June 30 of $10,073,645. Of that, a little under $4 million is considered non-spendable, restricted, or has been assigned to special reserves. Okay, then we can go on to the next one. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the expenses and unanticipated savings that resulted from the COVID-19 crisis during the period from March to June 2019-20. And so the items that you see in green are those expenditures that we incurred during that time. So some staff overtime, for example, under a special MOU with CSEA, we had a vacation payout because many of our members were not able to take their vacation during the prior year. We had some expenses associated with cleaning supplies, filters, and technology equipment. But there were some unanticipated savings. So, for example, the pool was closed. We saved some dollars there. We saved money with utilities, field trip support. Our sites did not spend a lot of their discretionary dollars. And then we saved quite a bit on conferences and workshops. And so the net impact of expenses and unanticipated savings was $255,000 net savings for 2019-20. Now for this year, to date, we have probably spent, beginning July 1st, 2020, approximately $510,000 on expenditures related to the COVID-19 crisis. And part of that includes our contract with Fuel Education, which we'll see soon. In addition, we've spent quite a bit on personal protective equipment, cleaning and sanitizing products and equipment, and then technology. Fortunately, however, as was mentioned earlier this evening, we are receiving about $872,000 in one-time COVID-19 relief dollars from a couple of different sources. And so as the months go on, we'll be assigning those expenses to those particular funding resources as appropriate. And so the board will see a big update about that with the first interim report presented in December. And I just want to remind the board too, and we talked about this in our business operations committee meeting last night, we may see a negative impact on our property taxes, which is the main source of our revenue in the years 2021, 22, and beyond. And so we'll learn more about that soon, in particular when our 2020-21 property tax certification report comes out in November. Our taxes will hold steady for this year. We'll be fine for this year, but we will begin to learn more about what that's going to look like in the out years. And so the Business Operations Committee is going to play a key role in helping us to develop a mitigation plan if we do see a budgetary deficit in the 2 out years. And that mitigation plan will be developed in conjunction with the Board of Trustees, of course, and our bargaining units. And so this last slide here just outlines some of the things that I've mentioned already. We have monthly meetings with our Business Operations Committee if we need to. And that mitigation plan that we developed will be done in collaboration with the Board of Trustees and with our bargaining units. And so with that, I would ask if the board had any questions prior to considering approval of the 2019-20 unaudited actuals.
Sorry, I was on mute. First, I would like to ask Ms. Madrigal, was there any public comment submitted on this agenda item? And is there currently any public comment on this agenda item?
There was no public comment on this item, and there are no attendees who wish to publicly comment on this item.
Trustees, are there any comments or questions on this agenda item?
Just want to thank Andy for all that work and always making it very digestible for us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I would also like to just reiterate that this unaudited actuals was also presented, remind everyone that it was presented to our Business Operations Committee. So members of the public have been informed of it, and we really look forward to working with the new members on our committee to provide input and oversight on these types of documents in the future going forward this year. Any other comments or questions from board members? Do I have a motion to approve the 2019-2020 unaudited actuals report as presented?
Make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Conwell?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Sorry, aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 14B, review and consideration of approval of contracts over $25,000. I'd like to call on Ms. Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. We had 4 contracts over $25,000 for board consideration this evening. The first is with Fuel Education in a not to exceed amount of $192,000 for the 2020-21 school year. And we will be able to pay for this contract using the learning loss mitigation dollars that we talked about in the previous agenda item. And then the second contract would be with, this is a renewal of an MOU with Napa Valley Unified and the Napa Valley Adult Education Program. And this is for the Napa Valley Adult Consortium. And what this is we receive $25,000 in adult education block grant funding. We then pay that back out to the consortium, and they provide adult education for Napa County residents. And the $25,000 is our portion for those adults residing in Santolina. And then the third contract would be with a previous vendor. This is EP Behavior Consulting. And this is for special education services, in particular for behavior support services. And we do have, this does live in our current budget, and this would be the contract for those services. And then finally, this is a contract, a purchase order with Apple Inc. for 30 MacBooks for the computer classes at Robert Louis Stevenson Middle School. And we did factor this into the 2020-21 technology budget, but it took us quite some time, especially due to the COVID-19 crisis, to identify the right devices to purchase for those classes, which is why we had to go ahead and purchase them prior to board approval, utilizing the resolution that the board approved in July associated with the COVID-19 crisis. And so with that, I would ask the board to approve the 4 contracts over $25,000.
Ms. Madrigal, was there any public comment submitted on this agenda item?
There was no public comment submitted. Are there any attendees who wish to publicly comment on this agenda item? There's no public comment.
Trustees, do we have any comments or questions about this agenda item? Lisa?
I just had a question about the Apple devices. Obviously, are those being distributed to RLS students?
They will be, with a very special agreement that the parents have to sign, and the agreement will states that they cannot they can't carry the devices around with them. They'll go home while they're still in distance learning. They'll be used at home, and then they're brought back to school, and then they stay at school once the students return.
Okay, thank you.
And
I'm sorry, excuse me, Ms. Stubbs. You'll recall that Mr. Harrington's class with the video editing is highly specialized, and he worked on a new curriculum. And in order for the students to be able to access that curriculum, this specialized computer book was required.
Right. Thank you.
And if I may add too, these devices will also replace a few outdated devices that he's got in his classes and be used more broadly once they're brought back to the classroom. The purchase does include Apple Care for each of those as well.
Julio,
I just wanted to make a comment around the Apple, the MacBooks. About my kids are super excited that they were surprised they were going to be getting this for their technology class. So thank you to the district for providing the updated technology. And they're looking forward to using them.
Any other comments or questions? So I am looking now for a motion to approve contracts over $25,000 as presented.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Conwell?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you for approving those great devices for our students. And also, I'm hoping that everything works out well with fuel education. I know that it was off to a rough start, but everything's been off to a rough start this year, and we're looking forward to everyone being really served well by all of the investments that we've made in our students' education. So we're on to item 15A, future agenda items. So for October 8th, if we look at item 15, we see the regular meeting of the board and the list of items that will be addressed at that meeting. Do any trustees have any comments or questions or subjects for future agenda items? Let's see, everyone is, no one has any agenda items to add. So I would like to move on to item 16A. Is there a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal, please call the roll.
Trustee Conwell?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
Trustee Pelosi?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye. Motion carried. The meeting ended at 8:37 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our community that listened today. And thank you if you're going to listen to us on our YouTube channel in the future. Good night, everyone, and have a nice evening.
Good night. Good night. Thank you.
Bye.